Started. All right, hi everybody. How's everyone tonight? I am just thrilled to see you all here. My name is Ashley Healy. I am the president of the Concord Public Schools and Concord Carlisle Regional Schools SEPAC, which stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. It's a big mouthful. Basically, our role, in case anyone doesn't know, is to advise the district on issues relating to things that kids on IEPs and 504s face, and also to act as a resource and a connection for parents. This year, we have been so lucky to have a wonderful educational series about transforming childhood that's really allowed us to connect so much with folks in the community, including all of you, so thank you for being here. We had some amazing sponsors that made this possible. You'll hear a lot more about them in a moment. I just want to give an extra special thanks to the board of the CPAC, and in particular our events chair, Dr. Kareem Hodges, and our publicity chair, and our publicity chair, Chris Tarlow. They have worked tirelessly, really, to make this possible. I just get to stand here and talk to you. It's nice. I didn't really have to do very much. They were amazing. So again, I just really want to thank you for being here and just leave you with a thought on community. It's what I've been thinking about a lot leading up to this night and this whole year. It's just so important for us, for our kids, for our schools, for everybody in Massachusetts and beyond, especially in times where people are feeling disconnected or helpless at times. Coming together like this is so important, and I know for me personally, I'm feeling very grateful, and really just happy to see you all here. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Kareem, our events chair. Thank you.
I hug you. Thank you so much. So hello. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm Kareem Hodges. I'm the events chair. And before I start, I just want to say this is a really critical and important topic, and I'm really excited that so many of you have taken the time in the cold and in the rain to get out here and to join us. This is the grand finale of our educational series, Transforming Childhood: Expertise, Innovation, and Community Engagement. The point of this series is to come together, to think together with community, in community. It's about the things that are good for all kids. Things like nutrition, nature, solitude, warm demanders, and an education that is grounded in science. As it turns out, the things that are good for all kids are especially good for the kids with stress and the kids on IEPs and 504s. As someone with dyslexia who struggled to learn to read and write, and who has a son with a brilliant dyslexic mind, yes, today's topic is very personal to me. Literacy is, as our featured guest, Kareem Weaver, would say, freedom. It's our greatest civil right. I want to begin by thanking our CPAC president, Ashley Healy, and our events committee, especially Chris Streeter-Tarlow. And I think you guys should give them a hand. On behalf of the CPAC board, I want to thank all presenters who've been involved throughout the series. Thank you, Angel Charles. Thank you to the Concord Carlisle educators who supported us and presented throughout this series. If you guys want to see these, you can go to concordcpac.org and you can watch the videos, and they're filled with they're filled with so much. Sorry, Kareem. And I want to thank the district. Thank you, Lori Hunter, and again, Angel, in that role. we really have felt supported in doing this, and that makes it all the easier to move forward. And there were decisions we had to make, and it was really helpful to know that we had the support of the district to make these decisions, including finding all these amazing sponsors. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the SEPAC parents who've been working for many years, advocating for children on the topic of literacy in particular. I'd like to thank the sponsors, Emerson Dental, Fusion Academy, Kids Centered, Waldorf School of Lexington, Concord Carlisle Regional School, CCHS Parent Association. Like, how many times do you guys see CPACs like siloed and not getting the support of the entire school, the district, and the parent associations? And this was different. We had a lot of help with advertising from all the parents, so thank you for that. Also, thank you, Saltbox Kitchen. Sorry, it's just my voice. Thank you, Saltbox Kitchen, and our partnering CPACs, Carlisle, Lexington, and Lincoln. Thank you. Now, a brief word from our sponsors. We just have a few sponsors who really contributed greatly to this whole series, and I'd like for them to just take a minute and to say a few things. Peggy, you want to go first?
Yay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Randall. I'm the office manager at Emerson Dental in Bedford. We're a multi-specialty dental practice, and we are so proud to be sponsoring this event and the CPAC here. I'm a former CPAC mom and the mom of 3 dyslexic children, and I had a long and crazy journey to get here, and it seems like a full circle moment to be here with Karen. We met through a business group, so life has a funny way of bringing us into these moments. So I am thrilled to hear Kareem speak and the rest of the speakers. Literacy is something that I am passionate about. I know what it means to a child. I know what it means to their lives. And I'm really excited to hear some of the things that we have to talk about tonight. Thank you.
Russell. Come on down. There you go.
Hey y'all, how you doing? So my name's Russell. I'm with Fusion Academy along with my fave, Alex, over there. So I'm over at the Burlington School. Alex is in Newton, and we actually have this big belief where, and all of you know, for education, one size fits one, right? So we specialize in customized education. 95-ish% of our classes are all one-to-one, and then we do have some small group classes. So it's helpful to, for a couple of kids where maybe a larger class size isn't super convenient for them and isn't necessarily the right fit, we work with them. And we also try our best to keep things to it takes a village type of model. So the reason we work with Karen and a lot of other folks like Kids Centered and everything is that we want to make sure that they have the support systems that they need around them. So we'll make sure to get them connected if they need any additional resources. And as we all say, Alex is the same way. We don't send our kids to places we don't know and don't trust. So it's always making sure that we're meeting with folks and making sure that we're meeting with all of you and providing as many resources as we can. So thank you so much, and we're really proud to be sponsoring this.
So these sponsors contributed to ensure that we could bring our keynote speaker, Kareem, out here, and we're really grateful for that. We've got one more, and that's Kids Centered. So Angela.
Thank you. We are so pleased to be here sponsoring this event tonight. I'm Angela Gowans. I'm a co-founder with Dr. Ava Miles Mason, who's going to be on the panel tonight, of Kids Centered. Kids Centered is a comprehensive support center dedicated to serving families across Massachusetts. We're an integrated team that offer neuropsychological evaluations, educational evaluations, educational advocacy, IEP support, school observations, transition planning and consulting, and private school and out-of-district consultation. We have on staff, we have neuropsychologists, we have educational advocates, a BCBA, and special educators to collaborate with parents and schools to help guide them through appropriate evidence-based programming. So we are so pleased to be here and to hear about the science of reading for Kareem, and we are so happy to support you all in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what we're going to do today is a similar format that we've been using throughout this series. We're going to hear Kareem speak, and then we're going to have a panel up here. And the panel is not just going to answer questions where, I stand here and ask them questions, but rather the panel is going to learn together. They're going to ask each other questions, and we get to see them do that. And then we're going to bring the audience in to participate, so you will be able to participate in the learning together. On our expert panel, we're going to have Millie Arbaje Thomas. She's a social worker and the CEO of Metco. We're going to have Dr. Avon Miles Mason, a neuropsychologist and CEO for Kids Centered. And we're going to have Catherine Tarka, educational leader, director of humanities and literacy for Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And finally, let me present our featured speaker, Kareem Weaver. Kareem, I'm going to keep it quick.
Good. Let's go.
He's the CEO and co-founder of Fulcrum. He's an educational leader and NAACP foot soldier. He's wise, beyond description, and everyone loves a Kareem quote because he has such incredible wisdom. Please welcome Kareem Weaver.
Thank you very much. That was short. Good. All right.
Enjoy.
Thank you. All right. Can you guys hear me well enough? All right. Good. Let's get after it. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Let's go. Oh, really quickly, just quick show of hands. How many of you actually work in school buildings? Can you just raise your hands? Oh, okay. What role? What do you do? Teach? Superintendent. Oh, she said superintendent. Okay, all right. Anyone else? Just shout it out. Just tell me. Go ahead. Special ed reading. Secondary, elementary, or secondary. Anyone else? Come on. Don't be shy. Come on. Curriculum and instruction. Who said that? Where are you at? Aha, I see you. Okay, all right. Out of the school building, maybe a central office or some other location. Anyone besides those folks that raised their hands already? Okay. School board people? Okay. I don't work in the schools, but I'm interested in reading. All right, my people. Okay, let's go. So you got 30 seconds to scan that. If you want to, I'm assuming at this point we're not taking slide notes and stuff, right? Like my kids have taught me that. Dad, we don't do that anymore, right? So if you're interested and you want to just scan that and it'll go to the slide deck, and later you can check out stuff, and if you don't do it, it's on you. Like, you don't have to, but don't I don't want to hear it later. This is the URL, so tinyurl.com/ConcordMass, and this is our website. You can go there, sign up for the newsletter or the updates and whatever. Check it out. All right, 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Told you. Okay, broccoli. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Broccoli. Anyone here like broccoli? Really? Wow. I did not expect those hands to go up. Okay. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about broccoli tonight. Thanks to Karen. Where are you at, Karen? She told me to talk about this tonight. She said, talk about broccoli. I said, okay, yes, I'm going to talk about it. You did. So those of you who don't know, there's a little bit about broccoli. Very fascinating, right? As a kid, I didn't like broccoli. It wasn't my jam. But if you look in the books, it says it's high in fiber. Interesting, right? Okay, let's get going. Keep that in mind. Here's a scenario. Stick with me. Now I don't know how many of you like to cook. I love to cook, okay? Imagine you are hosting some exchange students, right? Foreign exchange students, you get, let's say 10 of them are coming to live with you, okay? They're coming to live with you. Now, of these 10, you're in charge of everything, transportation, meals, the whole 9 yards. Like, they're yours for however long they're there. Of those 10, one you don't have to worry about. You see it up there, right? They got their own money, they're gonna buy their own stuff, whatever. Then you have another 3 who we love these kids. You cook it, they'll eat it. No questions asked, they're not gonna debate you with it, they're not gonna talk about how, nothing. Just put it in front of me, I will eat it, okay? And they'll be happy. Then you've got 4 kids who they gotta have broccoli, okay? We still love them, but they're a little high maintenance. Like, they gotta have it. Like, it's a medical thing, they need their broccoli, okay? But for 4 months, and after those 4 months, they can eat whatever. But they gotta have broccoli those first 4 months. And then you have a couple of kids where, listen, this is not a game. They've gotta have it. They need some diagnostic support. They go to the doctors regularly, they get checked up. If they don't get their broccoli, there could be a medical emergency, okay? Now, you are the host or the hostess. It's you. They're in your house, they're in your kitchen. Right? But and before you get them, you get the notice, like, listen, just so you know, the kids here, this is the situation. You with me so far? You with me, right? So now, the question is, well, a little bit more context. You have some money, their parents gave you money, right, through the program, the exchange program, but you don't have that much money, and you're busy. Like, you're a regular working parent, you got things to do, places to go, people to meet. You have more to do than just cook. Cooking alone is a thing, but you have other duties and responsibilities as well. And listen, nowadays, technology is here, friend. Like, you don't have to get vitamin K just from broccoli. Like, the store has vitamin K pills, right? Vitamins. And also they have synthetic broccoli now. But remember what the medical professionals said, like, if they don't get so the question is, when you go to the store for groceries, what do you do? And why? Please, with your neighbor for about a minute or so, just share. What would you do? Tell them. What's your approach when you go grocery shopping? Go ahead, talk. Go ahead. Be honest. If I don't see, I'm going to come to you and be like, what do you think? You think I'm playing? I'm coming to you. I am. 10 seconds left. You're like, yeah. Okay, here we go. What is your approach? Now I just have a little mic here. I'm gonna give it to a couple of people, right? What would you do?
You buy the broccoli.
That's the solution. Just buy the broccoli. Okay, and why? Here, take why?
Broccoli parmesan, roasted broccoli,
oh my God.
Steamed broccoli. Everyone's having it.
So you're going to be creative, but you're going to get broccoli. Okay. All right. But you do understand that a lot of these kids don't eat broccoli. You do know that, right? Matter of fact, one kid, they got their own money, right? So, okay, anyone else? I'm just going to pick you. You don't have to raise your hand, but, all right. What are you going to do, man?
I wore the pants. I'm getting the broccoli.
Okay, so but what if the kid says, broccoli again? Broccoli, right? Okay. She's like, oh yes, you've heard that before. Again? What then?
Have you tried the mini sauces we have for this fine broccoli? Spices as well.
Oh my gosh, there's one in every group. Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, so what you're saying, let me see if I synthesize this. Like, I can do it differently. I can mix it up. You said broccoli parmesan, broccoli this, but right, okay. Now, that's interesting that you would say that. Very interesting. Thank you, Kareem, for this idea. Where is she at? Thank you. Very interesting that you would say that. So not everybody would agree. There are some people who would say, hey, wait a second. I don't need to make broccoli all the time. Once this kid tastes my food, they're going to love it. They just haven't had, chicken casserole cooked the way I cook it. When they taste my food, they're going to forget about broccoli, right? They just haven't eaten. I know some people like this. I do. I have a cousin who's like this. I raised 4 kids on whatever, right? I cook seafood. That's what I do. And it's good enough for my kids. They're going to love it. And you know what? I eat broccoli-ish, right? Ish. It's in the family, the synthetic stuff, whatever, right? Now, for those of you who said, I'm going to cook broccoli every day, whatever, why? What's the underpinning of your decision? Anyone, just shout out. You don't have to raise it. Just why? Huh? I'm not a doctor. I'm a chef. Yeah, I don't write cookbooks. Okay, anyone else? What'd you say? Easier. What do you mean it's easier? I've never heard that before. Yeah, it's easier to just, what do you mean?
I have 4 kids. I don't know the same.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm thinking either one of my sons is.
Uh-huh.
Substitutes that have the same types of vitamin.
So you might go with a substitute. Okay. No judgment. Okay. Now, let me just say that a lot of people, so there's that mindset of, hey, listen, as long as they get what they need, whether it's a substitute or the original, I'm designing this. Then there are those of you who are saying, listen, I can't have some kid falling out on my watch. Like, this is my kitchen, you understand? Like, this is my reputation. I mean, it's not just about me, but not on my watch, not my food. You might fall out from her food down the street, because we know she can't cook. But me, in this kitchen, we're going to figure this out, right? Okay. Kareem, where are you going with this? Well, because I thought we were here about literacy. Turns out. So, there's 4 scenarios here about reading. Those percentages about broccoli kind of correlate to this. So, many of us in group A, we learned to read like we don't even remember how we learned to read. Like, we got our own stuff, we're good. Then you got other people who are in group B who just teach us something. Like whatever you, Montessori, whole language, balanced literacy, structured, whatever. Just be consistent. Teach us at school. We'll learn it. Grandma in a nook, Then there's those in group C who they have to have it a certain kind of way. They need it systematically, explicit, and direct. You following me? They gotta have it. If they don't get it, they're not going to be all right. They're not. They're not going to learn to read proficiently. They're just not. And then you have the red group. That's what it feels like. Just give me my doggone broccoli, please. This is a medical issue. Looks kind of like this. In the general population, that's what it is, according to the research. So, okay. And you can kind of say, I don't know if the thing's in a way, but the green group, so structured literacy is a thing. So when we start talking about science of reading and evidence-based, you can call it whatever you want to. Really, it's a structured approach as opposed to, don't be facetious, be nice, as opposed to other approaches. This is a structured approach. This is, structured. Let's just leave it like that. So it advantages, listen, you ever see those kids on the spelling bee and they say, what language is it from? And what's the Greek origin, that scripts? No one's disadvantaged by learning Latin and Greek roots, okay? But it's part of the science of reading. But it helps you, SAT. But that's 60, they gotta have it. If they don't get their broccoli, it's gonna be problems. Trouble in River City. And this 15 to 20, there's some research that says 20, so 15 to 20%, they're likely dyslexic. Not all, but there's some neurological difference, some processing things going on there. And so a lot of people think, hey, those are the ne'er-do-wells down there. Listen, every area I go to, I put a different picture up. This is in Massachusetts. Put a Kennedy up. Right, it's your guy. He's dyslexic. Marilyn Monroe was dyslexic too. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, real talk. And then I'm in the Bay Area. I put up Steve Jobs. I love that show. I don't know if you know that Shark Tank show. You know, 3 of those sharks are dyslexic. Yeah. Mr. Wonderful. I forget his real name. Damon John and Barb. They're all dyslexic. It turns out that 42% of the self-made millionaires are dyslexic. Huh. That's the red group. 42%. Also, 48% of incarcerated adults are dyslexic. See? Same mind. So all of this stuff for our education, this is over 24,000 at this point, the end here. This is me. Usually I'll do these things and I have people a QR code, they'll put in their, the images of the heads of the kids. So which one are you? And they'll put it on there. And it's like this. So we're 24,000 at this point. Sorry I didn't do it tonight, but yeah. That's the educators. So here's the biggest bias in schools. Sorry to disappoint you. It's not what's on CNN or Fox or MSNBC. They're not talking about this one. They're talking about racism and sexism and classism and ism. I'm not, whatever, do your thing, fine. But the biggest ism in schools when it comes to reading is learner's bias. Because these people over here have no doggone idea what those kids are dealing with. Why, I don't understand. Why can't we do 3 cueing? It worked for me. What's the big deal? This is much to do about nothing. If you just sit down and be quiet, if you just read Catcher in the Rye, it'll change your life. Just all you got to do. Pick up a book, right? Go read in the nook with grandma. But that's the type of stuff. These people run the schools. They pick the curriculum. They pick the teachers and the principals, the university professors. They're from the green group. The entire structure, the rules, the regulations, the administrative regulations, the policies at the board level. Yeah, that's the green. So we're in this mess because we're greenies. And oftentimes it's like humidity. Unless you're in it, like when you're in it, you don't really perceive it. So they have professional development and they think they're talking about social justice when they're talking about, race and class. Let's talk about racism today. Aren't we woke? Dude, the biggest ism is the one you're sitting on right now. It's the way you see things. Because if you really understood what these kids were going through, the majority of kids, there's no way you'd be doing it that way. Phonics is boring. Yeah, tell that to the kids that's locked up in jail. Well, I don't want to do this. I don't want a scripted curriculum. Oh, it's about you. I don't. This is dehumanizing as a professional. Oh, it's dehumanizing? Oh, please come to our IEP meetings. You can see 80% of special ed referrals have the root cause and reading difficulty. Please come. Please come. Professor. All right, sorry, I got a little fired up there. Are you with me? You understand where I'm coming from? This is the issue. This is it. Listen, I am not saying these are bad folks. These are my friends, my colleagues, these people who mean well. They want to do the right thing, but everything around them betrays them. Their own sensibilities, their default settings are set to something. They just don't perceive it. NAACP made this national resolution in 2014 that said dyslexia is a civil rights issue. I'm going to speed through this because I want to make sure we get to it all. This is my dyslexic daughter. This is her art. We didn't find out she was dyslexic until she was arising the summer before her junior year in high school. Lord have mercy. I taught my baby how to read, and that cost her because they didn't perceive the issue because she could read. So there's this pernicious combination of low expectations, and that may have something to do with race and class, right? The low expectations combined with that learner's bias. So what's the problem? There's officially no problem. She can read. Why you trip? Listen, not all kids are going to be grade A students. Like, you know, you're all parents think their kid is the best thing since sliced bread. So I understand, Mr. Weaver. Just be patient. Give it more time. By 8th grade, she's eating lunch in the bathroom by herself in tears. And when she finally was diagnosed, she's an artist. It's my girl. Our kids are going through it. They're going through it right there, right in the middle of school. And we want to give them how many millions of dollars did we spend on a social emotional program this year? Right? With mindfulness and all the rest, man, they can't read. I don't care what your mindfulness activity is. Cat Hat Rat is the best mindfulness program you can have. There's no getting around this. But green thinking says, maybe it's the parents, maybe it's culture, maybe it's race, maybe the trauma. That's the big trauma. That's green talk. It's the trauma. If we just give you some help with your trauma, then you'll calm down. And I can teach you how to be green like me. If I was a red and I was designing the steps, I'd make it. I wouldn't do the spiral staircase with the fancy. Just the goal is to get to the top of the steps, right? I want the simplest path forward. Okay. A couple years ago, some of you activists may have seen this. This is a Facebook group. Fonda Sapnell had a Facebook group, and one of the hosts, Terry, was tired of these dyslexia moms are no joke. They go hard. And she said something, and she got fed up with these dyslexia moms, and she's like, listen, you see it right there. You're going to turn the whole thing upside down for 20%? Mm-hmm. She said the quiet part out loud. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how good is good enough? What is the acceptable amount of loss? This is the conversation. I know there's a lot going on upon this bar. I'm just talking about what she said. This is the employee. I quickly took a screenshot of that thing. So why are you always talking about dyslexic kids? Why are dyslexic? Because those kids are what we call, it's the proverbial canaries in the coal mine. You've heard that phrase? If they're all right, everybody's going to be all right. You keep your eye on that one. Because he has to have that broccoli. And if I'm not doing it right, they're not going to make it. They need some very specific things. And so that's the reason why. Of course, we love all kids, but if you keep your eyes on the canaries in the coal mine, does that make sense? It's not that it's not the non-dyslexic kids are not, I'm not saying, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you want all the kids, our mission statements, all children will be how are you going to monitor all children? You're going to test them all the time? Sure, some, but look at the ones who are the furthest from the ones that gotta have it. And if they're okay, then you know that, okay, you get the point. Now, so now I'm gonna get in your business a little bit, Massachusetts. Yeah. So you know about Kumon? Okay. Not everybody knows about Kumon. If you don't know about Kumon, you get tutoring there. Now, understand what Kumon offers. People think Kumon offers this fancy dancy stuff. No, they don't. If you have a child that's been through Kumon, man, they're doing like basics. You're learning basics. They're giving you broccoli in Kumon. That's it. Math broccoli, reading broccoli is like staples. So the reason why, so I went to ChatGPT. It's my daughter, my dyslexic daughter. She's broke it all down to me. Dad, you got to learn to use ChatGPT. I'm trying. And so I asked these questions of the computer. Lo and behold, the computer started talking back to me. It was answering my questions. I kept asking more questions, and it remembered it was amazing. Now, I'll get to that in a second. So these places right here, I'm not from Massachusetts. I'm from California. I have a lot of family in Mississippi and Alabama, a lot in Chicago, but I'm not from Massachusetts. I have some friends out here in Cambridge area, but like, I don't know much about these places. You're probably from out here, so you know what this means. Is this the hood? Why y'all laughing? Why y'all laughing? Wow, okay, it must be really nice that everybody laugh when I put it up. So that's not the hood. Really, like that? Okay, is there a particular one that's better, fancier than the others? Which one? Concord, that's where we are right now, right? Concord's not even on there. Wayland. So if I live in Newton Highlands, I'm doing all right. Okay, cool. I know nothing. Well, I know about Cambridge. I don't know. I'm new. That's the beauty of being an outsider. You can just tell it like it is. I don't know. That means nothing to me. Nothing. So these places are, would you say, more upper class, middle class, lower class? Where are they at? Upper. How upper? She said up. Okay, I got you. She said up. Okay. So what? So this is what I want to do. This is how I really try to figure this stuff out. So if you really want to know what's going on, you got to watch the buzzards. Watch how they fly, where they go. My grandfather taught me that. Watch where they fly. Buzzards will always take you something. They're telling you something. Something has happened or something's about to happen when the eagle flies or when the buzzard is coming around. Right? Green. I had to find a green buzzard. So then I found some neighborhoods. I found these ones here, and the computer said that these neighborhoods were more mixed. Maybe it's wrong. I don't know. That's just what the computer said. Okay, is that accurate? And then diverse. I was like, Boston. That's like the main place, right? Whatever. That's what it said. So it kind of broke it apart like this. But what I found was that those places on the left had a lot of buzzards flying around. The Kuman, all up through there. All through there. Yeah, on the purple. Not that many down here. Not that many. But up there, so if I'm in let's say, give me a school district. I don't know if Natick has a school district. But let's say I'm in Newton Highlands. I might think that, well, all these kids are doing great. Maybe because they're white. Maybe because they're blue. Maybe because they're red. Maybe because they ate Cheerios. I don't know, but I might attribute something to it, not realizing that that's where they go. That's where the Kuman set up shop. They're doing great, but like business is booming in those areas. Booming. They even have a Kuman headquarters in Boston. Like national headquarters. I was like, what? Did you know that? A corporate headquarters here? Did you know that? Yeah, this is where the money's at, right here. Business is good. They look for people with resources that don't have access to this in school. That's a good business model. So I kept on with ChatGPT. I was like, you got to tell me more about this. Why? I'm asking. Why? I'm asking the computer this, and the computer's answering me back. Literally. And I said, why? And it said this. This is what the computer said. Maybe it's lying. But that's what it said. It's not personal. It doesn't know me. But that's what it said. I don't know. Can you read this from where you are? You good? I like this screen. Yeah. I found this to be fascinating. Affluent demographics to maximize profitability. We want to go where the money is. We're not crazy. We want to get paid. Buzzards. Listen, I'm not anti-Kuman. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you what it is. Then they said these things. I'm not going to read it all, but just the blue stuff. The Kuman stuff, it says they have a systematic approach to learning math and reading. Systematic. Remember the chart with that's the broccoli. That's systematic. That's it. So there's some people who say, well, that's not the love of reading. Yeah, okay, so you're going to deny these kids who don't have a lot of money, parents don't have a lot of money, but then the ones whose parents are living in Nantucket or wherever, I don't know, but they're paying top dollar to get the things that you deny in those in there because of ideology. Make it make sense. They're saying, forget that, we're going to pay for this, and I'm going to keep sending my kid to private school. It said that college preparation, strong academic foundation, critical for college and career readiness. Foundation. It reduces anxiety. So I know you have a beautiful social emotional program. Don't you have one in your school or your district? Most people do. You don't have a program like that? Yeah, they spend money on that stuff now. Lots of money. And you got to go to professional development, and you're going to talk, you're 25 years old and you're acting like a psychologist when you're not a psychologist. You don't know what a bathroom is. You're trying to figure it out, and they have you running groups therapy in school because the kids are stressed. The computer, so it says this Kumon reading, parents do this to reduce the stress. I need you to be the child that I know you to be. I can't have you be stressed out all the time. I need you to relax. And if you have these basics, your childhood your experience is completely different. If you love the babies, take that stress off their back. And then high expectations and just straight up. You want to get an edge. You can get an edge. They're paying money. So all these kids, we could talk about social programs, we could talk about all stuff, but I'm going to give you an advantage, child. I'm going to give you a strong foundation. I'm going to send you to this place. I'm going to cut the check, and you're going to have an advantage of all those other kids over there where they're talking about whatever the new topic du jour is. They're arguing about politics and what Trump is going to do and all that type of stuff. They're arguing. Yeah, come on. And listen, I'm going to get on the plane and go home. Somebody got to tell the truth. While they're talking about that, these ones over here are sending their kids to Kumon. But over here they're talking about social justice. Over here they're cutting the checks. I can't even. Come on, Johnny, your appointment's in 30 minutes. Let's go. Come on. So you can get an advantage. Okay. How much time do I have, Kareem? I'm getting a little carried away here. Just keep going. Okay. So you say, well, Kareem. Okay, so then what do we do? Now, each one of these things is a whole thing. And I don't have time to go through all that, but you got the QR code. You can look at those things. There's some links up there. Thank you for 10 minutes. And let me just put a pin in it right here. This is if you don't have these things, you're grasping for straws. I've looked at districts and states around the country, worked with departments of ed, worked with districts from chief academic officers and superintendents I have coaches who work with the principals and the teachers, but I'm working with all, and I turned a couple schools around, elementary, one high school, Department of Juvenile Justice facility, that was group home, orphanage, K-12 orphanage in South Carolina. So this is the stuff, man. This is it. These are necessary but insufficient. You gotta have your university education department. Where are you getting your teachers from? Are they aligned to the science of reading? If not, you gotta handle that. I don't care what they do on the basketball court or the football field. I don't care how many touchdowns they score. I don't care what Boston College is doing. I don't care what. I don't care. I don't. I'm older now. I've seen enough. I've cheered enough. How are you teaching reading? How are you preparing your teachers? And I got news for you. It's usually not the ones that are glitzy and glamorous. So we get distracted by the shield. It might be some small little liberal arts college that nobody even knows about. You can click on that link because you have the QR code, and it'll take you to Massachusetts list of universities and how the National Council of Teacher Quality scores them out for reading foundations. Have at it. They don't want me to show you. I don't care. I'm showing you. You just go take a look and be like, oh, what? Mm-hmm. It's only a few of them that have more than a C. I think it's like 5. The rest, I don't even have any C's. The rest are D's and F's. How are you going to fix the system with the university? So who's licensing these institutions? And what are they? Tell me about the methods classes. That's where it's at. It's the methods classes. I could go all day. This is free. This is free. You don't have to, you're a principal. Listen, I did this. We're all going to speak in complete sentences to kids. That's what we're going to do. We want to model that. We want to speak in complete sentences to kids day in, day out. You're all reading teachers. How are they supposed to learn the language? Just out of a book? It's how you talk and how you elocute. Be professional. You're not trying to be their homie. Come on now. You're an adult. You're a professional. You want the respect of being a professional? Stop trying to be their friend. Be their teacher. That's what they need. They gotta have it. They're red. That's green thinking. Well, I'll just be their friend. Okay. And while all that's going on, the teachers need, that's a lot of pressure. You have to have something underneath them that while they're learning and figuring this out, oh, and by the way, that's all classes, all grade. That's 12th grade, that's 11th grade, AP US history, that's everybody. Kindergarten, come on, you can at least talk in a complete sentence. You got to have a safety net, and it's going to cost some money for this one. I know there's some good ones. I have one link there, but there's other ones too. Someone in here met me outside and they do an intervention. Probably there's plenty of good stuff there, but there's a lot of junk out there too. You got to be careful. Look for evidence of results. While the teachers are learning, there has to be something in place to take the pressure off. That's a lot of pressure. Your university didn't teach you. The in-service is not doing it for the school district. The books aren't aligned, so it's all on you as a teacher to figure all this out. Second one is the one I want to make sure everybody, first two. Your stuff's got to work, the curriculum. There ought to be some type of evidence that this stuff, these books, this curriculum works, that kids become proficient readers. Curriculum companies, they know that the public does not look for results. They know. Forget about what you say, they look at what you do. Nobody ever asks them. So they don't publish it. They don't have results. A couple of them have, and they hide it because the results aren't too good. The ones that do have results are the smaller ones. The best one is yellow on Ed Reports, those of you who are into that type of stuff. Yeah, yellow. But the kids are just learning. And that's that second one. Let me just, because I could go on, but that second one there, y'all see that second one? I looked at the contract for Concord. 225 elementary. Anybody here work in Concord School District? Concord? Okay, 225. High schools, 1 block a day. Prep. Just I'm not talking about PD. I'm talking about you and your stuff. You get time to just work it out, right? So if you tell me that you get 225 minutes a week, but then the materials take 400 to 500 minutes a week to prepare, something's in the milk. That means structurally, by design, those kids that we say we care about, they're not included in the plan. Because I got news for you. It takes full implementation to get those kids. It's going to take all that. It was designed that way. The only way you get those kids is full implementation. But if the prep time doesn't match what's required for the curriculum, then we virtue signaling. Lord help me. What's at stake? I'm gonna wrap this up. Just a couple things. This is I want you to listen. I want you to listen to this. I'll be quick with it.
So in K-8, I received messages about me being unsuch. I knew because I had been assessed that there was something wrong and that my brain did not necessarily work like everyone else. But before ninth grade, I never had anybody sit me down and really explain, this is what dyslexia is. This is why you process things the way you process them. These are the specific gaps that you have in order for me to be able to work on those things. So when I got to ninth grade, I had a teacher named Obiaku, and she utilized a Little Bell program, which is pretty much like a decoding system, where we're taking you down to basic phonetics, sound, sight words, and those sorts of things. In addition to teaching me those basic skills, she really connected me to literature that I could identify with. When I got to high school, I was reading at a second to read level. I met Ms. Hall. She helped me develop those basic skills, and within a year time frame, I was reading at about grade level, so going from reading at a second grade level to almost reading my classes in grade. But one of the things that I'm aware of is that those basic decoding skills are beneficial for all students.
I have to put that last part on there because the Greens will say, well, that's for those kids. You know, that's the poor kids, the this, the. So that's the green mindset, you know, race, class. So it's beneficial for all kids. So, and I'm gonna confess something. I'm only gonna play one of these, and then we're gonna be done. Check this out. Listen, I'm old enough now. I just don't care, right? You get to a certain age, like it is what it is. I'm not here to be liked. I hope we get along. Like, you seem like nice folks, but whatever. And I'm out of state, so what? You know, come on. You got to get, young people, you got to get to that point in your life. I'm talking to them two young people up there. There's going to come a point where you realize I can't be shucking into, I have to just stand 10 toes down and it is what it is, right? And learn to deal with people on that basis. That's when you have real authentic relationships and friendships and enemies and they really don't like you, okay? So these two things here, I put them up here because I never know which one I'm going to play. I never do the same thing twice, but I usually use these two clips. The one on the right is black people. And so if I'm in a room full of black people, I'll play that one. Especially if they're older women, black women, I'll play that one. Because there's a bunch of little black boys in there and they get the crying. They identify with it. The one on the left is white people. And they're in, was it Scotland, I think? Maybe Ireland, I think it's Scotland. But they have that accent. You can't really hardly hear them too good, but you understand them, it's English, but it's kind of almost like a patois type of thing. But you can kind of make it out, right? I'm gonna play the one on the left of y'all. Straight up. But listen, the reason why I'm saying it is because I need you to identify with the downhill effects. I might be guessing wrong. And you are some very evolved people. You probably could identify with people from all different races and cultures. And sure. But I ain't taking no chances. I'm playing the white group for the white crowd, the black group for the black crowd, and you know what? I haven't been wrong yet. Because when the people hear that one on the left and they hear that accent, they be like, oh. It's all right. Okay, I'm gonna play this, then we're gonna be done, I promise. This is the last one. Okay, here we go.
Dyslexic Criminals. Hallmark Young Fellows Institute near Edinburgh houses over 400 teenagers from all over Scotland.
Scotland.
Many of them started offending while playing truant in primary school. By the time they came to Hallmark, they were seasoned criminals.
Voor 30 minuten ruim, waar uitspreken en drugs, concilies gezond, 20 minuten schuiven met z'n identiteit, kaafrecht, kamervlucht. Precies, dat is zo belangrijk. Dat is zo. Wat doen we nou?
Jane Kirk and Gavin Reed believe that undiagnosed dyslexia may be a significant factor in leading to juvenile delinquency.
But there is a body of evidence which suggests that dyslexia is fairly prevalent in young offenders, but there's some people who refute that.
The suggestion that there could be a higher rate of dyslexia inside prison than in the outside world meets with open scepticism from the head of education at Holland, Les Wiley.
I don't think you link directly dyslexia with major criminality statistics.
If Les Wiley is right, the computer screen will pick up between 2 and 5 dyslexics from the random sample of 50. It's time for the computer screening to begin. The computer test comprises 100 simple questions and takes just 15 minutes to complete. The study is complete. All the volunteers have been tested and the final results are in. 25 out of 50, that's half our random sample, have been diagnosed as dyslexic. It's an extraordinary result. The study suggests that undiagnosed dyslexia is linked to juvenile delinquency. Mikey's had lots of educational support, but this is the first time dyslexia has been identified. He's upset it wasn't diagnosed earlier.
Who did you eat? See, a few years in my life, see at school, then at school, I went to the girl at school, what I mean, but
I was going to say something which I think is very important, and that is that you've got to really look at dyslexia from now on as a positive thing, not as a good thing. We've got to try to say, right, okay, how can I move on from here?
all I can think of is when I was at school and I couldn't do research, and well, never thought I'd be able to, something, just a wee on the computer like that, tell us I'm dyslexic. You couldn't even do that at school from that.
Ryan, sentenced for armed robbery, is basically when he's told the news.
You don't feel that it really explains some difficulties?
If that's the case, I wasn't dyslexic before now I get an opportunity to do something like that. It's a shame, it shows you society more than that. That's why I can talk.
It's really true.
Could you understand him a little bit? For those of you who could hear or could understand, did anything that the young men said stand out to you? Did you hear anything? What did you hear?
He felt cheated.
Yeah, I feel cheated. He said, they couldn't even, you mean they did this, they found out they couldn't even do that for me? That's what he said, they couldn't even do that for me? They had all this brain science, all this research, they couldn't even do that for me? You know, I always say, we sometimes, we're afraid of our young people, and that's guilt. So we're down in that alley and we clutch the purse, because we know. When you weren't tended to, you're gonna grow up like a weed. Ain't no telling what you're gonna do. Yeah. So I want to make sure that kids don't get in that situation, that my wife is happy walking to the car. Oh, young people, hey, young man. But if she's afraid for her life, that's a problem for everybody. You understand? The other one said, what the other one said, did you hear the bureaucrat? Well, I do not think that the prevalence of dyslexia will be. Then that's how we do. We start to rationalize and mansplain and womansplain and edusplain. Well, I do not think that, the prevalence of this and the research says this, and I don't think that, half. Now, if I had shown the black one, then we could have been talking about school to prison pipeline. That's a popular thing to talk. But listen, that's not the color. The real color is green. Because if you got the money, you'll buy your way out of this thing. Like the buzzards so, right? They just didn't have, they didn't get sent to Kuman. That's the problem. It's green is the color. All races, all ethnic groups, all linguistic backgrounds. The question is, can we design a system that's going to work for the greatest number of kids? And this is the last one I'm going to show here. So, in the beginning, I put that slide up. We've talked real properly, and we have all the fancy words and language and rubrics and frameworks and all the rest. And man, don't major in the minors. The question is, can we do these things? Can we get some policy at the state level, at the board level, the district? Can we get some preparation time that lines up with curriculum that has evidence of success for all kids across subgroups? Does anybody have the courage to address the university issue that we have? Professors running wild, millions of dollars from grants from the National Science Foundation and elsewhere because they're a research institution, Carnegie level 1. This is what they do not want me to say. When you're a research institution, level 1, you walk a little different. You're in the professoriate. In an R1, we're R1. Big 10 or whatever, ACC or formerly Pac-10. Well, and so we get the grants. Yeah, but what about the research for education? What about that research? I understand the mice are doing this and that and the other. I get it. Fine. But what about the education research consensus? And you're preparing people that in a way that's not aligned to the research consensus. We need principals who know what they're doing. We need coaches and APs who can grow people. This is not the time to be managers. We need people who can grow people. Professional development is not just for teachers. My secret as a principal was basically I know how to grow people. That's it. And they respected that, and so it was cool. If you can grow people's practice, they will respect you. They may not like you. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they will respect you. And that's all, as a professional, you can expect. You can hope for something else. And then there has to be safety nets, and we have to have structural literacy. I know this is not a super popular type topic, and I'm not trying to do singing and dancing, but that's just what it is, just the nuts and bolts of it. The broccoli is not, to me, is not the sexiest vegetable, but you gotta have it if you gotta have it. Our kids need what they need. So it's up to us as individuals, as leaders, as community advocates, as professionals, and as humans, doggone it, to make sure we're taking care of our kids, and they have a right to read. Thank you very much. Now listen, we're gonna, thank you very much. Those of you who are on the panel, would you mind coming on up? We're going to have a little conversation if you don't mind. Thank you. Come on. Don't leave me up here by myself. All right. Yeah, come on. It's a party up here. Come on. And we have a moderator, kind of, sort of. And we have one mic here, a second mic here. Let's chop it up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit. Thank you all for coming, by the way, those who came and have to go. This mic's for you. Oh, you have a mic. Here you go.
Thank you.
And I have a.
Okay.
Oh, are you gonna moderate?
Well, you can start.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
So I think we're supposed to have a conversation between ourselves. So I don't know if somebody wants to start or if anybody had a thought to begin with. I can start if nobody wants to. So thank you very much for that. That was wonderful. And I think when I'm thinking about system change, because we're thinking about system change, I think system change is, can everybody hear me? Okay. System change is really hard. I was a teacher a long time ago, and then I work and consult with schools, and I'm thinking about the barriers to system change, because we know that the science of reading is, we have evidence about the science of reading and the right kind of curricula, but how to implement that and get that in our schools is difficult, and that's what you're doing, what your goals are, and I'm wondering about having a conversation and thinking aloud about that, and thinking about barriers, and thinking about some of the work to try to move that forward. There's been a lot of awareness about that, but there's also a lot of barriers because of attitudes, because of change, and the way that that systems are set up. It's hard to make change. So I thought we'd start there, and we can move to all different kinds of topics, but that's what was on my mind just to start.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put the slides back on the things that we need to have, and you all can take it away, and maybe I'll come in at the end if I have something to add, but I'll pass it to you all while I do this.
I'm sorry. So hi, I'm Dr. Miles Mason. I'm a pediatric neuropsychologist, and I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Concord. This is Millie Arbaje Thomas. I'm the president and CEO of MECO, and you guys are one of my favorite MECO districts, and the MECO program is here in this community, so thank you.
Hi everyone, Catherine Tarka. I lead the Office of Literacy and Humanities at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And I can jump in on your question about barriers. Sure. So I think initiative overload is one of our significant barriers. Kareem, you were talking about how we spend a lot of time and energy on social emotional programs, all kinds of different initiatives. Some are aimed at academic achievement, others are aimed at enriching other aspects of the school community. Sometimes it's remarkable to me as a parent how rarely academics or learning of any kind is talked about in the community where I live. And I don't think reading levels of achievement have ever been discussed. So putting this front and center and clearing the way of some of the other things that we're focusing on and spending a lot of energy on is a barrier that I see in a lot of places that I think we can move. I also agree with some of the things Kareem shared around professional development for everybody in the system. Sometimes teachers have a really hard time accessing professional development to update their knowledge, particularly if they were trained in out-of-date practices. I got my teaching license in the early 2000s. I was 100% trained in outdated, non-scientifically based practices that I since had to relearn everything I was taught through new professional learning. Not everybody has access to that. They may not be able to pay for it on their own. It may not be offered where they work. So we have to provide that to the teachers, and then we also have to provide it to their principal. It's very difficult if you're a teacher, you go off and learn all these wonderful new scientifically based practices. You come back to your building and the principal is like, what are you doing? This isn't what we're doing. So the principals also have to be accessing the same up-to-date training that we want the teachers to receive, and those are big barriers in our state. We have a lot of teachers on the more veteran side who haven't accessed training, who haven't been able to access that training recently.
That makes me think of two things. Is you have to have buy-in by your administration and by your teachers and by your educators, and also making sure that you're having a curriculum that works, that you've thought out the curriculum and you have the appropriate training. And it seems like it's a multi-part, complicated implementation that requires, again, buy-in and a lot of investment, emotional investment, time investment, financial investment, in addition to your staff and your leadership meeting you where you are. Kareem, does any of this seem accurate?
It seems okay. I'm supposed to say yes, but I don't agree.
Okay, I'm very curious.
Because the biggest obstacle is us, the adults. First of all, we don't get along. You can't really move big systems when a bunch of people don't get along. We fuss and we fight about everything. Red, blue, up, down, gender, class, race. Like we can't, you gotta build coalition, and it's tough to build coalition when we don't play well in the sandbox together. That's the number one obstacle. The second thing is, so the obstacles, sure, there's always gonna be obstacles, but the biggest issue we have is a lack of leadership. We need people who just gonna say, we're gonna make it so. And I'm not talking about the teachers. Yes, we always point to the teachers. Listen, I get that. But I'm talking about policymakers and superintendents and school boards and principals, and like those are, we gotta have people who are gonna say, not on my watch. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not, I understand there's some folks in here, all due respect, I'm just saying, like we gotta save the babies, right? We have to get to the point where we keep the main thing. The kids have got to learn to read. Okay, now the blockers to that are secondary to what has to happen. We have to have that list of things up there. We gotta have that. If we don't have that, it's not gonna work. So what's the path to that? There are a lot of different ways, but you have to have good leadership. Last thing, and I'll turn it loose, our desire to be liked and approved of is a killer. As a principal, the tougher the school, the less you're going to be liked at first. I'm giving everybody feedback every day. I'm observing, giving feedback. We've agreed on what we're looking for. I'm giving you constructive feedback to grow your practice. I got to grow people, right? But that means I have to get over my need to be liked. And I'm going to give honest, respectful, professional feedback consistently. I'm in every classroom every day. High school, middle school, elementary school, whatever, every classroom. And I'm going to give you something. And that way we hold a professional standard of conduct, of how we do this thing that infiltrates into every aspect of the organization. That from the teachers' lounge, well, not teacher lounge, but from the boardroom to the principal's office to wherever else. So it's us. There's no boogeyman that's keeping us from doing this. We know what to do. Well, we have research about what to do. We have to disseminate and practice those things and get really good at it.
Right. When I was listening to you talk, one of the things that really stuck out to me when you said something that really is a bugaboo for me is oral language, because
One of the things, as somebody who diagnosed dyslexia a lot, is people are really fixated on phonics, and phonics is hugely important, but it's just a part of the story. So people think, it just as long as they can decode and we can get them to decode, everything's going to be okay. But there are so many components of language, and a big component of language is oral language. So your receptive comprehension and your expression, and your vocabulary knowledge. So there are many facets of language that good ELA instruction should hit. And so being from an early age, having good oral language instruction where, as you were saying, being spoken to in full sentences, having good instruction in grammar and syntax, having vocabulary development is so important for being a literate person, for your reading instruction. And I feel like those things are being separated, and there's this huge concentration on just get the kids to decode, and that's necessary, but it's absolutely not sufficient. And especially in different communities, there are communities that are going back to the Kumon discussion, in communities with less in more advantaged communities, there's a lot more enrichment. You have a lot more language enrichment. You have a lot more access to literacy and books when you're younger, and naturally you have a lot more oral language development. In disadvantaged communities, that's not the case so much. So it puts you behind the 8 ball even before you start the reading journey, if you don't have good quality instruction. So I think that's also an important thing to recognize when you're thinking about instruction and in different communities. So there are so many pieces to literacy instruction that it's so important for people to think through when you're implementing good quality reading instruction.
I wanted to also add, according to this slide here, Kareem, is all the things that are needed to try to close this literacy gap. But you also brought the conversation about the Kumon centers and, in the communities that have additional supports. But also I actually saw the documentary that involved a lot of the work that you did in Oakland, the Right to Read. And there was a lot of discussion there about the parents and the relationship with the parent at home. You were just talking, about, the talking, the full sentences, the practices of that. So I was, I'm a social worker by trade, so I really do believe that education has to also be a partnership with, with our school system. We can't just count from 8 to 2 o'clock to make sure that all of these things, happen, and just wondering, what do we need to do to engage the community and people like here, like a SEPAC, group that's actually full of parents who care about this topic. How do we educate our parents more and bring resources to them and tell them how they can be there at the very early on? How do they talk to their children? How do they, enunciate these words? How do they have a conversation with babies? But that's something that I really think is important. And when you talk about the Kumon, discussion here, we don't have any of those in Boston. So there's definitely a gap there between the haves and the have-nots and, urban and suburban communities. So when you start looking at people that not only have a great suburban education, but then also have additional supports right after school and on weekends to enhance that, what does that mean for, the literacy of everybody? And I liked actually what one of the sponsors said, that Fusion Academy, one size fits one. Like how everybody needs something very specific and specialized for them. So how do we deal with these gaps of inequities, and how do we bring parents into this conversation, and how do we deal with these realities of what's happening in certain communities that other people don't have access to? Are we ever going to catch up? Are we ever going to catch up to these? Yeah. Are we ever going to catch up to these gaps that exist? When we got all of this competition and this market out there, people that can afford to do all the extra enhancements. And I'm just saying that teachers can't do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you in the sense that because I think you've done outreach in the communities, is what would be helpful to them? What kind of services because I think it's on these larger community structures to extend the hand and help them. I think sometimes one of the things I think that happens with dyslexia sometimes is some parent blaming that they were supposed to do something at home that was supposed to solve this problem. And so I want the parent involvement really, really helps, but guiding the parent and supporting the parent, I think, is really helpful rather than saying, and I think helping them know how to engage. And so I have a question about what do you think might be helpful for these families, or what kinds of things can be done to help?
Yeah, and I also want to be clear that I'm not talking about just about MECO families. Just want to be clear about that. Just because I represent the organization doesn't mean I'm talking about that. There's all kinds of, income and educational variety within our MECO program, but I'm talking about those who need to just get that boost, no matter where they live in terms of literacy. And I think, it's just not, like you're saying, it's not just the parent engagement piece, it's the training of the parents, that education that needs to happen, that support. For example, I know that Concord schools went to my office in Boston, and because it's a geographic barrier to be able to stay here after school or go to the library or go to an additional program, they built a small library in my office, and MECO families are coming with their QR code and picking up the books that they have to pick up and getting additional, tip sheets for parents and support. So that's an example of going to where people are at, and bringing the resources to the people, and having things accessible. So I think we just have to get creative about what it is that any parent needs or has an identified child that needs additional support, and are we bringing this to the hands of of what happens in people's homes. There's an organization right now that I just became aware of, and I'm forgetting the name, and maybe you guys know about it, but it has the word read on it, something to read, and I keep having Kareem's documentary, like The Right to Read, and I can't think of anything else now, but it has the word read, and it basically happens in the pediatrician's office. Huh? Thank you. That's exactly it. I just became familiar with Reach Out and Read, and my example of that, this is a national organization that trains pediatricians to teach parents at the wellness visits from the age of 0 and newborn to basically, bring resources to the home. And they have a national, model that actually works. My point to that is that it takes a village. The point to that is where do we have interactions and intersectionality of children and adults who care about their well-being, and actually, bring them together for the cost of closing the reading gap. So I just think it takes a lot more adults and a lot more institutions, and we need to have the right training, the right interventions, and go where it's needed. So that's why I love that program that I just became, familiar with, and they've closed the gap in millions of kids around the United States because of their approach with doctors.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about state level. One of the things I think I'd like about this discussion is, as you were talking about it takes a village, is when we're thinking about supporting child development, I think it's really important to think about it as ecologically, as it requires intervention on every level. It requires intervention within the family. It requires intervention within the school. It requires intervention within the community. And then we even need to take this focus out further and think about, on the state level, the government intervening in the sense of developing laws. So I want to think about it as what are we doing on all levels to help support children? So if you could talk about what's been happening on the state level to support laws and to support policy that's been helping children.
Yes, I'm looking at your list and saying, have I done all the things? I hope I've done some of them. We're working on it. We need to talk. I think one thing worth mentioning is the policy change around early literacy screening assessment that has recently taken place. Hopefully most of you who are, hopefully most of you who have a child in grades K to 3 have received notification that your child has been screened for their early literacy skills in the last couple of years. It became required a couple of years ago, thanks to the action of our Board of Education, that all children in grades K to 3 have to be screened at least twice a year using an assessment that DESE has approved to see if their reading development is on track. And very critically, if their reading development is found to be significantly below relevant benchmarks, the parent has to be notified and invited in to have a conversation about how the child is receiving support. So we're still working on implementing that in all of our districts. I cannot tell you how many districts or schools are in compliance with that regulation because that's not information that we have. So we reach out to district leaders, to school leaders, and to families where this may not be taking place to provide support. But this is a huge piece in terms of connecting with families because as a parent who had a child in elementary school prior to the regulation, I could tell you my older daughter was struggling terribly. The school did not recognize it or acknowledge it, and there was no conversation had with me. So that's the kind of thing that's not supposed to happen anymore now that we have a regulatory framework for early literacy screening. I also want to mention educator preparation, which I know is a huge area of focus for you, and I hope you'll be pleased to hear this. I think the Massachusetts Department of Education, who is the institution licensing institutions of higher education that prepared teachers, accrediting them, has said that all teachers who are being prepared now in Massachusetts need to be prepared in accordance with evidence-based, scientifically based, and culturally sustaining practices. And there's a large new set of criteria that institutions of higher education have to comply with in their formal review by DESE in order to continue, to be accredited to continue licensing teachers. It's a really big change. This just went into place last year. And we're proud of the new criteria and how the first reviews are underway right now of institutions of higher education, demonstrating that they're preparing their candidates in accordance with that. It just started happening this spring.
I know we're going to turn it over to. I know we're going to turn it over to audience questions, but I would love to. First of all, did you all hear what she just said? That's huge. Can y'all give her a hand, please? Listen, I'm all for throwing rocks when you have to throw rocks, but you got to give flowers when it's time to give flowers too. You know what I mean? For real. That's huge. Thank you. I just want to, when you were talking and asking the questions, I was pulling up what the jail said. 30 years ago, the Department of Justice put out this report about jail and prison and why people keep coming to prison. You know, we talk about the school to prison pipeline. I'm sure you've heard it. It's a thing, right? But the prisons say, this is the abstract. Now, it's about 35 pages, but this is just the abstract. This is what the jails say. The jails say, the research found that reading failure is most likely a cause, not just a correlate, for the frustration that can and does result in delinquent behavior. An inordinately high percentage of juvenile wards are unable to decipher accurately and fluently and write legibly and grammatically what they can talk about and orally comprehend. A high percentage of wards are diagnosed learning disabled with no evidence to indicate any neurological abnormalities. Handicapped readers are not receiving the type of instruction recommended by the research. And reading teachers, as a result of pre-surface reading methods, which y'all are working on, have been denied a working knowledge of the reading programs and methods of instruction that are most successful in preventing reading failure. So as to remove the barriers to improve reading instruction and allow the handicapped readers to become proficient readers in the shortest possible time, it would be necessary to provide reading teachers with the opportunity to acquire a knowledge of the alphabetic principle that govern the English language and become confident in using instructional programs that incorporate intensive systematic phonics methods. Last sentence. In-service training must come from the private sector because departments, schools, and colleges of education have not provided this type of instruction. They've given up on the colleges. They just said, we're going to have to go around them. These kids keep coming to jail. We're going to have to go around them. And I know phonics isn't sexy. I'm just telling you what they say. They say the reason why they in here, because they can't read the letter. we can take it or let it alone. We might disagree with that. That's fine. Disagree with it. That's fine. Fine. But I know it's not just about phonics, but so there's levels to this. So, for example, college and career readiness, oral language development. There's all prison phonics, complex text college. You understand where I'm going? They need all of it, but if they can't read the letter, nothing good is going to come from that. I know we got to turn it over to them, and you may have the response, but I just want to say, because that's not a popular opinion. I'm supposed to say it's not just phonics.
And the data, it's so clear. Data reading is so highly predictive of your outcome, of your occupational outcome. So if it's not the only thing, but it's so clear that there's just a huge correlate with life outcomes. So it's just such an essential. It's like water.
Gotta have it.
Life is water, reading is life. So it's just hugely important.
Do people have questions? Okay. I think there's going to be a lot. We have time.
Hi, I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much for coming here and bringing this to Concord. I'm a parent of a daughter with dyslexia. She was the 20%. I have my miracle worker that taught her how to read. School supported that through. She's in college. She is successful in college today. But that work does not stop for other kids, because I cannot imagine what other families and other kids are going through. My question is for Desi. In 70s, OG on steroids, how Susan does it, that saved my child, and that has been around. Landmark has been taking our kids from districts and from other schools. Carroll has been taking those kids. Teachers saw that these kids were going to those schools, and that system worked. They were reading in 2, 3, 4 years, but they were reading, and we're not able to do this. What was Desi doing? Like, why did you guys not tell the teachers to maybe have that as an option? Because it sounds like those regulations are coming from the state. And thank you so much for bringing up, it's not just phonics, it is expressive language and all the other grammar, teaching grammar, structured literacy. There's so much more to teaching kids how to read. So I appreciate the conversation. Parents are reading this community. We have libraries of books. We are reading to our kids. Our kids are not reading. So it's not the parents. There are communities that they need those supports, they need those enrichment, they need that one book, per year, per month. We are still seeing the same numbers, so thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. Also have seen the transformative power of OG on children in my own family, and a lot of districts offer that program, a lot of schools offer it and swear by it, and a lot of them don't still. Your question about what is the department doing to spread proven approaches in our schools, the answer to that is we're able to offer supports in a couple of different forms. We can offer grant funding that helps districts or schools implement new practices or get new materials. We offer professional learning, training, networks, all kinds of opportunities where we try to bring educators together and promulgate information about what works. But decisions about what instructional programs and what instructional materials are used are local in Massachusetts. And it would require regulatory or statutory change for that not to be the case.
Right, so like superintendent. We'll come back to you. Oh.
Is that what that means, superintendent then? Is that what that means then, like superintendent? Is that what you're saying? Like the local? Define local.
Yes, school administration in collaboration with their school committees are making local decisions about curriculum and instruction. Okay. With the exception of some items that are regulated. Like I talked about early literacy screening earlier, there's certain regulations around special education and other areas. Some things are regulated, and most decisions about what we teach and how we teach are made locally.
So I have a question, because obviously we're here, we're taking time to spend time with you. How do we convince these local decision makers to actually adopt the broccoli? And because they're still talking about it like this is just the 20%, like Fountas and Pinnell. And then my other point, and I'm not sure how we really address it, but you were saying that money is the great equalizer. But the point that I would like to make is the 20% or 45%, depending on how you look at it, are not all kids that can be saved with just money, because they have other disabilities. And what I have found is a number of programs that say it's pretty rich coming from these disability advocates that are like, dyslexia is more than a disability. But they're like, we don't do behavior, we don't do this either. And what about those kids? Because if anyone needed to learn to read, it's those kids as well.
Thank you.
So the first part of your question was, what do we do? How can we get people to get the broccoli on the table? So it takes a coalition. It takes advocacy and activism. This is a democracy. Well, it's a democratic republic. You have representatives at the state level, at the district level, at the county level. Tell them what you need. We need structured literacy. Don't adopt any materials that are not aligned to the research consensus. And tell me how much time teachers have to prepare. We need something that they can fully do within that time. You just got to tell them. Tell them. You have a right to demand that. But I would caution you that it's much more effective to go together in coalition. That means you're going to have to get along with some other folks. They may not look like you, they may not sound like you, but everybody wants their kids to read. You just have to write that letter, go to the board meeting, you have to feet to pavement. You're going to have to push. This is not free. If it was easy, they would have already done it. Understand that these are folks with good hearts. Most educators, I don't care where they are, they're there because they want to help kids. They believe they wear the hero's hat, right? But they're green, so they don't perceive it. So you have to come at them in a way, you have to bring more light than heat. You have to be able to show them what's going on in a very coherent manner. Send them this video, assuming it's being recorded. Send them. You have to make sure they understand. I don't really care about your mission statement. Equity is this. That's why the NAACP is so important to have a national resolution on this, evidence-based instruction. Say this is a civil rights issue. Join the NAACP. You're white, you can do it, doesn't matter what color you are. Join. Get on the education committee. Say we want this to be a priority. Have your education chair or your president say, we want you to go to school board and deal with this literacy crisis. You have a national resolution. We want to have, so there are mechanisms in place for you to pull and to operate, but you have to be willing to do it and go together in partnership. Now, the second part of your question, you got excited when she said that. What was it?
I did, sorry. I got very excited. So I hear the pain in your voice, and I'm sorry. Because I understand it. A lot of programming, and I think if I understand what you're saying, or what you're feeling, is a lot of programming in schools, and if you go to like an advocate or you go to somebody, it's designed for a specific kind of student. You're dyslexic, so you can go to X school or X program, but our brains and our minds don't fit into a box. We're not check boxes. So life exists on a continuum. So we often have brains that don't fit into a box. Lots of us have dyslexia and something, dyslexia and ADHD, dyslexia and anxiety. All of these things are highly comorbid. We can have more than one thing. We have more than one feeling. We have more than one things often. So a lot of times we have more than one need. And these programs often are not flexible, and they're not suited to serve people with more than one need. And that's really hard because we do have some good dyslexia programs in the area, but often they're kind of exclusionary. So they say if you have X or Y, we can't support you, and that's really painful. And so we need better, more responsive programming. And we need programming that can say, you're a diverse learner, you have multiple needs. How do I support you in your school with your diverse sets of needs? And that is challenging. And we need to think about people we need to think about students in a different way, and we need to think about them as having multifaceted brains. So we have strengths and we have vulnerabilities, and how do we support those multiple vulnerabilities rather than this is a checkbox and you're a child with dyslexia or you're a child with X. Does that make sense? And it's a hard and it's a painful journey, and I'm sorry for that journey.
Let me give the unpopular answer to go along with that, before I know Karen has the next question. But part of what I'm hearing also is there's a lot of other stuff going on in kids' lives besides not just being able to read. We have trauma, we have poverty, we have violence, we have other learning differences, processing differences. We got all kind of stuff going on. You can't just put it all on literacy. I know you didn't say that, but somebody might be thinking it, so I just want to address that. Yes, and 80% of special ed referrals have an underlying cause of illiteracy or low reading, 80%. When kids can read, that metastasizes. So I know they're fighting in the hallway. I know they're cussing and fussing and throwing things and cutting school and yelling and spitting on each other. And I know, showing out, acting up, and they can't read. A friend of mine, he's an actor, his name's Amir Baraka. He went to prison for a while and came out. Every time we go somewhere to speak, he goes by the prisons first. He says, man, they can't read. I was like, man, I know, I'm trying to tell them. It's not the only thing, but it is the main thing. School systems, they think they have an attendance problem, they have a literacy problem. They think they have a suspension problem, they got an illiteracy problem. So you know who gets, the one group that gets this more than anybody else, down in Texas, I won't name the school district, the boosters realized, I had a conversation with them, so I said, if you really want to win state, talking about football, if you want to win state, you'll solve this literacy crisis because most of your kids are ineligible. Your offensive line is ineligible. If you fix this, you win state every year. Man, they fired the superintendent. They got the contract rewritten. All within a year, they had a whole lot of money raised for professional development and training. They have a plan, Roadmap 2030. Boosters. There's sports. It's where the heart is. But I felt kind of dirty doing that, but at the same time, they're doing it while we hemming and hawing and what about this and that, they don't want to hear nothing about the trauma. They're like, superintendent wasn't on board, she's gone. Gone, just like that. Roadmap 2030. I'm not saying that to disagree with you. The kids have a lot of things going on, but we do have to realize that this is a gateway to a whole bunch of other things that happen in kids' lives.
The other thing I do want to add to that, to support your point, is a lot of times children of color tend to be over-identified in schools as having behavioral issues and ADHD and under-identified for learning challenges. So that's a consistent finding. So they're quote unquote treated for attention issues, for behavior issues, and learning challenges are attributed to behavior issues. Whereas there's obviously they experience learning issues at the same rate as children of white children, but also if you're having a learning issue, it's going to give you a behavioral issue. So, and there are other factors why there could be behavioral, I won't get into very complex situations, but that's a very consistent finding that white children get diagnosed with learning disabilities at a much higher rate in schools. So there's a bias to not treat the learning for children of color, which creates even greater challenge. And to your point about prison to pipeline, or pipeline to prison, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Miles Mason. We've got a question here. I've got someone over there, and then we'll make our way around. Okay.
Thanks. So just wanted to add, and I think in particular, I appreciate all of this, but really pointing to DESE, kind of, because I think it's important to know. So I think it extends well beyond the teachers, especially for kids who have more complex disabilities. You know, I basically think the most important thing completely is literacy. I have a kid who I used to teach adult literacy. So I basically was like, my kid is dyslexic in grade 3, had her tested, just screened by the school, decoding at the first percentile, reading comprehension like an average child. But because she had a designation, which she's had since she was for pre-birth, of having an intellectual disability, they have year after year refused to say that she can have a specific learning disability. Literally, the ETS is taking your mass on DESE's website flowchart and saying, no, the flowchart says you can't have these two categories together. And I'm like, no, it can't be a function of. Learn how to read a flowchart, okay? The school psychologist is like, no, look at her IQ score. And I'm like, okay, but I'm reading the narrative in your IQ testing, and I'm reading, and then she refused to answer these 3 questions, and then she answered 4 more right after that, but I couldn't score those. Oh, and yes, the narrative part is she answered to my question, when you shut up. And I'm like, yeah, so you're taking a bogus score, and you're then using that bogus score and bogus methods and stereotypes about what kids can do, and you're telling me not to look at the reading data? I taught adult literacy. I taught dyslexic people. I've been trained by the people who built the screeners. Like, and to this day, 3 years later, thank God they gave her the services. She has OG 6 hours a week. She's gone in a year and a half from being a non-reader in grade 3, literally reading at a preschool level, okay? She's now, with her reading teachers, testing halfway through grade 2. So in a year and a half, that's the progress she's made. And I'm like, I don't care if my kid is the first kid in the country to get a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and dyslexia, but when you talk about communities not fighting, how about the community that has on the one side, my brilliant child is dyslexic, and I'm gonna hang on to that discrepancy model until I'm blue in the face because it works for me, and all the other communities who get left to the side because this bogus IQ testing is never, ever going to get their kids into a landmark, into a Carroll school, getting the services. I am 100% the exception. My boss ran the National Center on Learning Disabilities and was like, you have to be prepared to sue your school district. It's a disgrace to me that you have to be me to get the kinds of services I have, and that you would have a school district say to you, you can't have these two things together. I mean, that is DESE. If that doesn't get taken up, I'm shocked, because that's happening. We have kids in our school who they won't even put through the DIBELS testing because they're like, they have behavior issues. They're not even getting the testing. So their parents aren't even getting information that their kids can't read because they have they're low verbal or something else is going on. Anyways, I'm very mad, but I'm gonna pass it on to someone else. But that is what's going on in the schools, so.
Thank you. I promised I'd go that way. She was very persistent. I'll come back.
Thank you so much, and thank you all. And Kareem, I had the great pleasure to meet you at the Give Black Alliance event in Boston a few months back. I'm also one of your most persistent followers on Twitter, and I retweet you all the time. Thanks for the follow. I really appreciate it.
I hope I don't get you in trouble.
You mentioned the special C word, coalition, and so I am proud to be sitting here with members of our coalition, and we are part of the Mass Reads Coalition. And this is the second legislative session. We have filed our bill that would mandate that districts have to use evidence and research-based instruction. Thank you. We have wonderful groups with us, including the Give Black Alliance. We have Decoding Dyslexia. We have the Reading League of Massachusetts, Hill for Literacy. We have wonderful Teach Plus. We face an uphill battle, though. One would think that this is the most, you present it, Kareem, in the most logical way possible. But this is Massachusetts, where local control rules, and God forbid we tell anybody how to teach a child to read. And so anyone who wants to join us, this is a David versus Goliath fight. I am not overstating this. We have flyers, we have handouts with an email address where you can get in touch with us. We will be having a hearing at the State House. We need as many angry moms as we can put together to come and testify. and tell the legislators who don't always look at the data that tells us that only 4 in 10 third graders are reading proficiently in math. I live in Boston. 80% of Black and brown children in Boston do not read proficiently in the 3rd grade, which is why Metco is still in business after 30 years, okay? And that's the truth. So we have to do much better. We have handouts. Please come see any of us after this meeting, and we'd love for you to join the cause. Thank you.
Recommend waiting at the door.
Well,
and
can I
as they
just-
go, you hit them. Don't wait for them to come to you. You come to them.
I think it's worth adding that I think it's in the 20s. Chris and I were looking at this data for Concord. It was in the 20s, 20, maybe 24, 25% of our low-income kids are reading proficiently, I think in like 5th grade. So.
Well, the question has to be asked, how good is good enough? That's really the question y'all got to wrestle with. How good is good enough for Massachusetts? I mean, because at some point, that building coalition is a means to an end. It's not just to have, tea. It's so that you can get something done. But it starts with recognizing, hey, this is not good enough for us on our watch. That's my kids, that's my neighbor's kids, and it's going to take, someone asked earlier, what's it going to take? That's phone calls, that's the folks in the Assembly and in the State Senate, emailing them, emailing and calling Governor Healy, you have to stay on it. This is a time for activism. I know you see the old civil rights newsreels, black and white, their march and all that. That's all wonderful. We just had Black History Month. That's all wonderful. This is a civil rights movement now. Now. It's great to have heroes about yesterday. That's wonderful. Listen, I love me a good Dr. King speech, much anybody else. Today, who's going to fight for our babies today? This is what it is today. You got to pick up your sign and march today. And that might mean an email, a phone call, or whatever you got to do, talking to somebody you don't agree with politically. How about that? How about that? They're red and you're blue and you can go down to the governor's office together or to the state senator or assembly member and say, we got to have this. We got to have this. We got to have this. I speak this language. She speaks that language. I live in this town. They live in that town. We got to have this. If you're not willing to do that, collectively, you're going to get run over because you're dealing with heavy forces. You got to go together, and you got to be willing to fight together and advocate for what you want on behalf of your babies. But you have to decide how good is good enough. That's the first thing.
I'm just going to say one thing about good enough, because I do a lot of meetings where we're looking at reading charts and what's adequate progress. And the standard for what's adequate is pretty low. Pretty low. And a lot of times we're looking at percentiles, like enough progress is 18th percentile, 14th percentile. And here's what I say is I'm probably at the 14th percentile, 12th percentile for height. And that's okay, because being short is a disability. It's not a functional problem. But when your reading skills are at the 14th percentile, what does that mean for reading? It means you can't really read. Like, can you read every other word? Are you getting, that's functionally means you're not reading right. When I've been in meetings with teachers and they say, well, that means you're, that's right in the range. I said, would you be okay if your child was reading like that? Would you think your child was reading? And I don't mean to put the teacher on the spot, but we're not really thinking about the child and what the child is doing and what it means when we're looking at that percentile. And we have to think about what is a standard. Every child should be able to hit a benchmark, a reasonable benchmark that says that this child has appropriate skills for that age and that they can access the curriculum. So that's just something I wanted to add when you're thinking about advocating for your child and thinking about what it is to be in 2nd grade and read like a 2nd grader, and that's or a 3rd grader, whatever is appropriate.
Hi, Catherine. Is Catherine, right, your name? Catherine is your name? Yes. I'm going to do a question, and it's based in ignorance. I didn't study here, and I didn't grow up in this country. But you said that Massachusetts government in charge of education doesn't dictate or has involvement in say what they teach and how they teach. But then, if I'm correct me if I'm confused, there is the MCAS. The MCAS is something that Massachusetts dictate. And there are certain specific questions, very concrete, and you make numbers that then have conclusions. So what I don't understand is how does it work? So you have this, here is a tree that is producing apples. So you create a system in the government that is going to say how red are the apples. But there is not direct involvement in the care of the tree to see how the tree, what it's doing and how it's doing. And when you later go to a governmental thing for the results, coordinate both things. So there is I cannot understand this connection.
So it sounds like you're asking about the state versus local responsibility, is that right? So there's a disconnection between what students are being assessed on the MCAS and how the teachers are teaching and what they're learning? Yes. Yes, and my kids too. So I am with you in my personal investment in this issue, right? My children too. Like I was speaking about earlier, the way that the system is set up in Massachusetts dedicates almost all instructional decisions at the local level. Local administrators and school committees are really responsible for what happens in their local schools and are making decisions about what materials to use, what to teach, and how to teach. The Department of Education sets standards. So any of you that are teachers in here, you're very familiar with the curriculum frameworks. The curriculum frameworks lay out what the state believes should be taught at each grade level, and that's what's tested on MCAS. But even that is a matter of local control, what's taught at each grade level and how it's taught. And like I mentioned earlier, that's how our local legal framework for control of educational decisions is set up.
So let me just add to this too. It's culture. So in the South, places like Mississippi and Alabama, the State Department tells them what to do, and they do it. In California, New York, and Massachusetts, the State Department tells them what to do, and they say, okay, thank you very much for your recommendation and your suggestion. We appreciate that. Goodbye. And they do what they want to do. Local control. You can't tell us what, it's part of the culture. I'm not saying that's bad all the way, but in this situation, you're going to have to wrestle with the local people, the school board, the superintendent. Those are the people that make policy at the district level. You're going to have to engage your labor association, the teachers union. You're going to talk to the principal in addition to the teacher. So, you know, it's culture. And places like Massachusetts value that. It's almost like an article of faith. Local control, teacher autonomy, it's a whole bunch of stuff that goes with that. What is the word for it? Teacher, what is it? I forget. There's a phrase with it. Academic freedom. You know it, huh? Academic freedom. Academic freedom. You can't tell us what to do. I can do how I want to do it. You can't tell me nothing. And it plays good on social media, but in the classroom, man, you liable. Room 10 is doing something all the way different from room 15. And the parents know who's doing what. And so they scramble every year to get their kid in room 10. Because they're doing different stuff. And the principal's up there saying, well, what you want me to do? They don't pay me enough to wrestle with these alligators.
Can I just add one thing too? Even though at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we don't control a lot of instructional decisions, they're controlled at the local level. We have an instructional support unit, and that's where I work. And I wake up every day thinking, how can I work with schools to improve instruction? Right. That's what I do, and that's what my whole team does. And we are making a lot of progress that I think is very hopeful in areas like use of high quality instructional materials and declining use of instructional materials that are based primarily on discredited practices. So for example, when I started at the department about 7 years ago, there was no information collected on what curriculum were being used in districts, so we didn't really know in any systematic way what curriculum our students were being taught with. But just anecdotally, with the information we had, we believed that there were 5 districts in the state using purchased curricular materials that had been rated by some third party as high quality. 5's a pretty small number. Today, we do collect systematic data on what curricula our children are being taught with, and we believe that at least 50% of students are being taught with curricular materials that have been defined as high quality by the state. So we went from potentially a single-digit number to over half in the last 7 years, and so that's a sign that even though these decisions are being made locally, I do believe messages are getting out about evidence-based practices, discredited practices, and the type of curriculum and instruction that we need for our children.
And let me just say one last thing on this, for me anyway. What you're wrestling with are these policies and decisions that are being made. There isn't, if your curriculum, high quality, wonderful, evidence-based science reading curriculum, does not align with your prep time, right? If the teachers don't have the time to prepare consistently for full implementation, then all this is a game. Because structurally, systematically, you're just hoping. You're hoping that they do it on their own time. Hope, I love hope. I love me a good Obama hope speech and change, but that's not a strategy. A strategy. They have to line up. And if that's all you have to do as a parent or a community member or advocate is just look at the contract. Look at it, see how much is on the books. They get that much. And that's not just reading, by the way, that's for math and everything else for elementary. And then look at the curriculum. If those two things don't line up, then nothing good is gonna come from that. You have to make sure that when they're choosing something, it has to work, and it has to be aligned with their system, starting with the amount of prep time teachers have to get ready for their lessons.
Thank you. First of all, this panel is marvelous. Thank you all for being here tonight. I've been teaching for the 20% for about 50 years, so I do want to make one of the mothers in the audience. I do want to say something about when your child has been given a low IQ score. When I was in the public schools, I found that most of the children's IQs who had been done originally in first grade had dropped 25 points because they had not received explicit, direct science of reading instruction, which of course they got from me. And basically, my goal was to make sure that every kid who came to middle school left and went to high school on grade level, and that pretty much happened, which goes to show you that it's never too late. You can turn things around. Now, my own son had the opposite good fortune because I was there. I went to Mass General Hospital, learned Orton Gillingham, and taught my son after he failed first grade. But his IQ rose 26 points between grade 1 and grade 8. So I have noticed that when you help the kids, the IQ goes up, so you really must help the kids. Now, another thing that I've observed since I've been in private practice is that public schools often teach the first grade as nothing but short vowel sounds for 6 to 8 months. They may not even get into vowel consonant E. It's as if they think the children are too dumb to learn anything else. I believe that we need to have schools offering training programs for parents, particularly those who speak foreign languages, because the children whom I teach who have 2, 3, and 4 diagnoses, they're all learning to read with 90% accuracy, usually in 8 months. And these are, the ones who are really difficult. But I demand that the child learn 5 new sounds every week. And I demand that the parents sit at the lesson with me and learn how to teach. And I send the parent home with flashcards. And the child is supposed to study those flashcards with the parent 2 to 3 times a day. And after all, if the child in first grade is learning 5 sounds a week, Of course, he can pass any first grade test. He can probably pass any second grade test. So I would like to know, is it possible for the state, and I love all the changes you've made, you've done great, to add some sort of regulation whereby schools are responsible for inviting in parents, offering to them at least once a week instruction of how to support the children so that they learn the sounds they need and therefore they can progress in reading.
Thanks for your question. Thanks for sharing your story. I always love seeing you at these events. Is it possible for the state to pass a regulation such as the one you described? I'll just say yes, it's possible.
So hold on, let me just say this. So I understand that sister's up here and she's a good target because she represents the department. And I recognize that there's some responsibility that comes with the role. But man, that's not it. You have to understand, if you're serious about this, it's gonna come from you. You have to, you gotta fight for what you want. It takes parent and community activism. That's more important than any one official or any legislator. It's you making sure your priorities are known. You can't depend on the department. I'm trying to tell you, if you're going to be about it, you're going to have to step up and as a community and say, this is what we demand.
Right. So what have you been doing it?
Keep doing it.
Yeah, no, not just for a year, not for 2 years.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. And pass the baton to the next generation. Tell them, keep going. Keep going. What option do we have? Our children are circling the drain. Keep going. Nah. That's true. Usually it's because they get so desperate. Usually it's because they get so desperate that they're forced to change. Either because the budget is on edge and special ed is 4x times. Desperation is the mother of invention. But you don't want to wait till you get so desperate. You can do it now. I agree. I agree.
And you can't access the curriculum in middle school, and then he's getting behavioral, right? People get behavioral because they're pissed off, frustrated. I know you guys know this. Everybody in this room knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, that's what I'm saying. It's like, there's got to be someone there. You have local control over reading. Okay, well then you can pay for all the things that we need.
Okay, we have another question here.
Okay, this question is for you, Catherine, at DESE. Okay, so how would you compare DESE's rubric for evaluating curriculum to Ed Reports? Because Kareem, you mentioned the best curriculum you know received a yellow on Ed Reports, right? And my school is piloting revised units of study and collaborative classroom, which they sprinkle in a little Foundations and Hegarty, and there you go, you have your phonics, right? So with DESE, how would you say that DESE's report is more sensitive to the curriculum, more critical? I mean, the Reading League just reviewed Collaborative Classroom, which is a balanced literacy curriculum, and it received all green.
It's not about.
So now my school wants to use it because they have this great report from the Reading League. We're still waiting for DESE's report to be published. Is there a chance that DESE will be more critical than the Reading League?
Hi guys, oh, they left. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Let me just say there's a lot of misunderstanding about these curriculum. Collaborative Classroom is not balanced literacy. It's a segmented, being a reader, being a writer, SIPs, etc. But people say they're dry and boring, but they have results and they do pretty good. But you have to look at results. You have to look at results, and don't get into the word games and it's this one does this and this one does that. Does it work? That can save you so much time and energy and hassle and political machinations. You have to leverage that. And that means that takes people to actually read these reports that these companies put out hopefully, and to do the research on them. And right now, there really is no one doing that. So that's really what it is. And that includes at the department level. Like, I read those reports because I got nothing else to do. This is my life's work. There's 400-page reports. You gonna read those reports? Somebody has to. So we have to make sure that we're advocating for the things that work and require evidence of success for kids. That's the main thing. And at the department level, just like at the school district level, they can get hoodwinked just like anybody else. But if you look at results, that's the straight path.
So I want to acknowledge that we're already way over time,
Sorry,
but I'm
I
happy
took
to
that
keep
one.
going if, I don't know, I know Millie has to drive a little further, and I don't know about Catherine. So I just want to be respectful to our presenters, and I know there's still lots of people who want to ask questions. So guide me.
I'm happy to stay after if people have more DESE questions. That might help you be able to wrap up.
There's a lot of DESE questions. Should we ask if there's any Millie questions so we can, I'm not sure. Oh, okay, wait, so I want to be very clear. Okay, so is there anybody on our panel that needs to go within the next 5 minutes? Because I have a feeling this is going to take a little longer. Kareem, we might have to send you a little
I'm
more
here,
money. I don't know what we're
so
doing here.
I ain't going nowhere.
So I already gave
Yeah,
the
right.
mic to someone else. I'm gonna thank you to I think you guys should applaud the presenters first. Thank you so much, so much. Now this is what we're gonna do. If there's anyone who has young children they have to get home to right now, or anyone who doesn't want to stay, please don't feel stuck. We appreciate you coming. And then for people who want to keep asking questions, I think this is so amazing, and I'm so grateful to everybody. So let's keep going, I guess, for those who are going to keep doing it.
Hi, thank you all for being here. So I have a few comments, actually. So I'm an advocate. I also had a child who really struggled, didn't learn to read till he was in 6th grade. I'm happy to say he is a junior in college, but that was through a lot of hard work, some great teachers, and so forth. But I think something that was talked about earlier on about exposure to reading as a young child, most of the people that I work with read to their kids, and this is not, their reading disability is not because of a lack of exposure. So I just want to clarify that, because I think all it does is shame parents and make them feel bad. And a couple other things that I think that I want to bring up. One, the benchmark assessment that DESE requires, 90% of the parents, when I get a new client and I ask them for that, they don't know what I'm talking about. The schools are not notifying the parents that not only are they not notifying them of the testing in general, but they're not, when it's intensive instruction is required, which they have to be notified, they're still not notifying them. And it goes on, I get reports 3 years worth, and it says intensive instruction, and they knew nothing about it. So that is a big problem. They just think their kids are okay. And especially if it's the oldest child, parents often don't know what the expectation is. And then the last point that I want to make, well, it's a little bit of a two-part. One is, we've been teaching kids to read for years. I don't understand why this is so difficult for districts to kind of come up with a system that works. And part of the problem with learning to read, unlike lots of other problems that we may be dealing with, is every year that you're working on another program, that child is falling further and further behind. And so when you have a 2nd grader that's reading at a kindergarten level, and the school's trying to figure out what to do, and they're trying this and they're trying that, and the kid's in 3rd grade, and they're still reading at a kindergarten level, that's a bigger problem. And so this gap keeps widening. That doesn't happen in other things. If you were to get into a car accident and you're suing for an injury, that injury has happened, it's over. This problem gets worse and worse every year. This has to be rectified. The district, state have to think out the box. Bring in retired teachers to do a couple hours of reading instruction. And there's a lot of retired teachers that would be happy to work for 5 or 10 hours a week to do stuff. There's just got to be a way, but we can't keep going on like this with these kids not reading. Sorry, that's it.
No, that was just a comment, so.
was up earlier. Yeah. So I guess I have, first of all, thank you all very much. I really appreciate you being here, and especially Catherine. Like, I really appreciate you hearing everybody and genuinely being an educator of an English teacher. I've seen some of the literacy work that you guys are doing, and you're, I think, trying to move the state in the right direction. So thank you. So I've been a special education teacher for 25 years, working in social emotional classrooms my entire career. Oh, sorry. I'm used to being able to speak loudly. And what you talk about, Kareem, is exactly my life experience, right? Within my first 6 months teaching in a school, out-of-district school for kids who struggled, I looked around and I went, why are these kids so mad? They couldn't read, right? And now 25 years later, it's the exact same thing. And the thing that I want to say is I think that all of these things that you're talking about are super important, really critical. And I think that it comes down to actually looking at the teachers and saying, you know what? Like, do your research, learn the science, and do it properly. And yes, should school leadership drive that? Yes, should policy drive that? I agree with all that. But I also think that it's important for us to actually look at those individuals, because we didn't have a reading program in the school that I started out in, so I went out and I paid to get trained in Wilson. In my school now, they don't have a great system for it, so I just do it how I think it should be done, teaching through that scientific way. And there's a lot of teachers who are doing that, and I think that we just gotta make them.
Let me just add and respond to that, because I appreciate that. And if you're going to look at the teachers, which I understand, they're the face of everything. All policies, parents just see teachers. Who's preparing your teachers? I mean, you know, these universities, you pay your money, your tuition, right? You expect to get a service. That when you get into that classroom, you're ready. But then you find out you're not ready. Matter of fact, the stuff you learned was the opposite of what kids need. 100%. If you're going to actually deal with the root of this, you have to look at the hand behind it. It's the educator preparation program, whether it's a university, college, a non-traditional, whatever, however they got their certification. Man, you gonna that is where it's at, and they don't play well with others. Historically, they're very independent, but somebody's got to bring them into you know, they gotta come on board, because if they don't come on board, then you're just gonna keep having this thing. When the next wave of teachers come in, then the next wave of teachers come in, it's the professors, and that's what the prison said. If you read that thing, it talks about it's the educator preparation programs. And they say, we got to give up on them. We got to go around them. We can't go around them. We got to deal with that, especially the public ones.
Kareem, I get what you're saying about getting to kind of the main source, essentially. And at the same time, this reminds me very much of the conversation we had earlier, where I was saying everybody is responsible. Like, everybody. And I say that in my own work. I say everybody. Like, nobody gets to say, this isn't about me, it's your fault, point finger, whatever. Like, no one. No one. And no one has any business working with kids if they are not actually there to consider the needs of the kids. And I think sometimes we're so busy either placating, whether it be the teacher or the parent or the university, rather than just doing what you tell us to do.
Mm-hmm. I disagree when you said the first time. I disagree with you now.
Okay, we're going to keep disagreeing.
I hear you. Everybody has to be involved. But we have to be willing. If we're not willing to address the elephants in the room, educator prep programs, you're talking about power, authority, cachet. No one wants to talk about Harvard and MIT and all these schools, and we wear the sweaters and we're so proud and all. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about the football team, basketball team. I don't care I don't care. I used to, not anymore, right? But the teachers, man, they're such easy targets. They're right there. They don't have, they're right there. But the colleges, nobody really wants to wrestle with them.
Isn't it less about Harvard or MIT and a little bit more about Lesley University right now, though?
Yeah, but there are others too.
Okay.
It's
So
really,
everybody-
it's not just
Okay.
Lesley. There's a lot.
One thought I wanted to contribute is around getting some leverage with school committees. And an analogy that's worked for me at times in speaking with such groups is to think about medicine to help people understand that our field of education has a body of literature, just like medicine, just like dentistry, just like all these other fields. And I would not go to a hospital that was still cutting open abdomens to get appendix out. I want to go to a hospital that has interns, that is an educational facility, that is using top-notch practices, that our field of education evolves and is meant to evolve just like other scholarly fields. School boards and committees are comprised of people from different fields. They almost rarely have a majority of educators. So, you know, these comparisons to their own fields of study where they are can be useful levers. Just one quick point.
I just want, before she answers, I just want to say thank you and good night. I am literally falling asleep and I have like a 50-minute drive and I had a very early day and an early tomorrow, so just want to apologize, but it's a long drive back to where I'm going. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
Oh, there is a MECO question, okay.
Can you repeat those statistics?
69% of African American kids in Lexington cannot read. 57% of low-income kids in Lexington cannot read. How, in our school district, our school board thinks it's fine because the other 70% are fine. How is this okay? And isn't there any checks and balances with Metco to say this isn't okay?
Well, going back to what Catherine was saying, you know, when we enroll our MECO students in the suburban districts, they are fully enrolled members of that community. They belong to that community. So, you know, there isn't any checks and balances in terms of our grant processes to get that. Our grant actually does go through the Department of Education through DESE, that's who oversees our funding. So we advocate for our funding at the state level. It goes to DESE. DESE then goes and gives it out to the MECO districts in a grant in a grant way. So there is like no criteria for, you know, reaching certain benchmarks. Like, but it doesn't mean that we have not been working towards that. For example, we began a new initiative a couple of years ago that I've been leading through my office called MECO 2.0, which means that we are holding our districts to higher standards to addressing any equity gaps that are going on, whether it's in teacher diversity, whether it's in academic gaps, whether it's in, you know, access to extracurricular activities. And we actually got from the state, we lobbied to our legislators, and we had we had $1 million that we received just to implement 2.0, and districts received grants to add additional supports. Like in Reading, they actually adopted something called Ignite Reading. So now when people when our students arrive earlier in the bus, they actually are going straight to work with teachers to do the Ignite Reading curriculum, which was proven in Chelsea Public Schools to actually close the gaps. But in terms of your data, you know, we just had a 20-year longitudinal study in MECO by Tufts University professor, and she studied 20 years of like thousands and thousands and thousands of students. I think it was 10,000 who applied to MECO and got in, and those who did not get in. And what we did see is that all of the MECO students were actually scoring higher than those who did not get in and did not get into a MECO district. But the gap between the MECO students and the suburban students was still there, but we still were better than in Boston. So overall, there's a lot of work to do to close gaps at all levels. Is that a MECO question too?
Like I'm right. To add what Jen was just saying, that there's certain lower income people that are not doing well, the children aren't doing well. But interestingly enough, when you live in a very wealthy community, it's not showing the figures for those parents that are wealthy, that send their kids to tutors, and they get outpacing, they can pay lawyers. So it's not an even score there.
I think we've also seen that the literacy rate across the United States is failing almost everywhere. It's a nationwide problem. It's not even just race-based. It's not according to certain communities, but do we have it in some of those communities more because there's a lack of resources? Yes, that is true, and that's why I was saying earlier that I do believe that it takes everybody involved to do this. I'm not saying that it is the parents' fault if the person is not reading, but will it hurt for more work to happen at home? Will it hurt if we do more reading? Will it hurt if someone that didn't go through college or didn't have the resources gets a little bit of support on what I can do in the classroom? This can never hurt. I mean, the literacy rate in the United States is not where it needs to be across our whole country. So more is never less.
I had a quick follow-up. Okay. I don't know if there's a METCO question, but I had a quick follow-up for you if you were done.
Go ahead.
Okay. I had a question, maybe if you wanted to address this with them, is to ask so they're having this failing rate, but they're kind of just saying, well, it is what it is. I'm curious if they have data on what they're doing for progress monitoring, for providing RTI services, providing IEP services. Are they intervening at all with these populations, or do they have any data on this, or are they just like leaving this there?
We're actually having they're coming to speak at the school committee on Tuesday to give us a literacy update.
Yeah.
But no, our numbers are the same from 3rd grade all the way to 10th grade. So there is no progress being made.
Right.
Yes, we have dibbles, and they're now sharing the results because the parents demanded it. But we have so many families that are just paying. I pay $400 a week to tutor my kids to learn to read. And they're in the class with the METCO kid next to them that is not getting that. So I read at home, I have books, I do all of that. It wasn't enough.
Right.
My kids needed instruction, and they can't get it at school. My 6th grader, I was told today, there's nothing more we can give her in the general ed curriculum.
Right.
She doesn't have a learning disability, she just wasn't taught to read.
Just real quick, in terms of the accountability and the data, it is really important for parents to push the school committee to have regular reports out to the community on how all these groups are doing, not just the aggregate, but the subgroups.
Yeah,
that's really
I was
important.
saying, to this entire group over here, I hear your frustration with Lexington. I understand what's happening. Part of this local control piece is, one of the difficulties here is, I think, something's been shown that it's not working, and somebody doubles down even harder on the fact that the program is working, and now it's like, but now no, it's really working. It's almost like when a cult like the doomsday comes, and they're like, no, but now it's next week. So it's almost harder. Like they're holding on harder to this curriculum. I don't have a solution for you except for to keep on fighting. The more data you have, the more data you track, the more you make that public, and you try to get more support for for it. And you're right that the private tutoring is masking the issue, because everybody who has the financial means would rather pay for the tutoring rather than watch their child suffer through this process. And then it becomes very evident in when you look at data from families that do not have the resources. So everybody loses in this situation. So more data, the more data you can ask them for, the more data you can ask for subgroups, for breaking up that data. And also because if you look at the data from Lexington altogether, it looks really good. But it's when you break it all down. So breaking it all down, asking them for lots of data and presenting it is really important at school committee meetings. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but. That's a good.
They said they would do it last year. We haven't had it yet, but hopefully they'll do it so they can actually see how many parents are paying.
One of our more affluent districts in the Bay Area of California, we were able to get the PTA to do that. The superintendent tried 43%. 43%. This is one of the high performing districts. So they have like 70% proficient, and they touted as being, we're great due to bees knees. 43% are getting private tutoring. They have a lot of money in this district.
That's not surprising. I think that's probably accurate. It'd probably be about the same.
And to be clear, sometimes this isn't, so just because you have money or you're making money doesn't mean you have the cushion to do that. There are people living paycheck to paycheck making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's sometimes we think, oh well, it doesn't matter. They're making this money. No, they pay taxes. You're a taxpayer. The school system is supposed to be responsive and give a free, appropriate public education. We have to get outside those economic silos as well. Yeah, as opposed to playing sports and yeah, that's right. Enrichment. That's right. That's right.
Millie, you're free. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Millie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to continue for the holdouts. I'll just maybe one or two more questions. And I feel like, Colleen, are you sure?
Right.
Are you sure? Okay, right here.
Hi, this might be a little bit different. I'm hearing a lot of talk about teachers, a lot of talk about the state and everything, and thank you. You're doing a great job up there, taking a little bit of heat, so thank you. But I'm curious from a different perspective, like, is there a push to pull in other providers? Like, as I was listening to you say what to do with your kids to help them, I'm thinking we started the screening process before my oldest was born. When we interviewed the pediatrician, we told everyone we came into contact with that there was a risk because my husband was dyslexic. We got early intervention. We knew we had a speech impediment by 2 months old. And like we did the reading, we did the speech, we did everything. Like, we've been saying dyslexia since 2013, and we're only just now getting there. And I'm curious, I think it was Millie had mentioned, like, going to pediatrician's office. We went to the pediatrician, they didn't know anything. Like, we got a neuropsych, they're like, oh, well, your kid is complicated. Well, thanks. Got another neuropsych, no one could really do anything. And I know, like, someone had mentioned, like, it's up to healthcare providers to really educate parents and stuff. But I can say as a nurse, there is no way in the way that the healthcare system is that that's something that could be happen. And it's like my 4th reading event at least. And you hear teachers, you hear state, you hear all this, but you hear very little about bringing in outside providers like nurses, like physicians and such. And I know that for my son, when things were reaching a crucial point, we were just like, just put your head down and say you're tired. And then we put in his IEP, every time you're tired, get sent to the nurse. And then finally we're like, look, my son's been to the nurse 37 times, can we have the nurse at the IEP meeting? And that was one more voice to speak to it. But you don't hear about it. And when we were looking into it, we're like, we want to help with literacy, but I'm a nurse, what can I do? And there was nothing because I wasn't a teacher, so there was no pathway. So I'm just curious if there is any push to bring in those outside providers that are so crucial, because illiteracy is also a public health crisis as well. And I know as a nurse, we need to make sure all our education material is limited to a 2nd grade level.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I don't really feel like it's heat, so thank you for saying that, though. It's a great need to raise for related service providers and healthcare providers and other types of partners to be involved. I feel like there's some of that happening, but probably not as much as you would like, and some of the things that you're saying are giving me some new ideas we can pursue. I think speech-language pathologists should be highlighted as one really underutilized professional. They often have really up-to-date scientific knowledge and training in the area of language and literacy development. They're not always brought in to talk about cases that are more challenging, where like maybe the teacher isn't sure what to do or the regular interventions aren't working. There is a push for the speech-language pathologist to be more present in those, to have a case-based discussion of those students, even if they don't have an IEP or they don't have an IEP yet. So that's one thing that's happening, and I think we should broaden our thinking to what other professionals could be part of that too.
So SLPs are not trained to do literacy unless an SLP has gone and gotten specific OG training. So SLPs, a traditional SLP training, they're not trained as a literacy specialist. They have certain skills that can be super helpful for somebody with dyslexia in developing their receptive and expressive language and articulation, which are all skills that support reading. But speech language, if you're trained as a speech language pathologist, you're not trained as a reading specialist. You would have to get additional training to get that. You wouldn't be trained to do phonics-based instruction. So you would have to get that additionally.
Right. It sounds like some do get the additional training, right?
I mean, yes, some do, and I mean, if they're a certified, if they've been a certified reading specialist, it sounds fair that they should be able to. I'm not sure.
But we shouldn't assume that just because they're a speech language pathologist
that they're
they can intervene around.
Yeah, so I mean, if you would have to be certified as a reading specialist to work in a school as a reading specialist. So having a speech language degree, you need a reading specialist, you need a learning specialist degree as well. That would be my understanding of it, because you have to make sure that you're equally trained.
Thank you so much for all of you. Thank you, Kareem, for coming all the way from Oakland. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Dr. Miles Mason. We're really appreciative of all this time you guys all gave us. Thank you for coming tonight. We're so grateful, especially for you guys who hung in there for like the 3-hour version. You guys have a good night. Drive safe.